Hey, good morning, it's Joyce. Medusa was framed Medusa readings, and today we're going to get into part 2, the actual tuning fork experience, and talk to you about how to actually use some forks. But it is just so intensely difficult right now, isn't it? It's just so thick and murky and sticky and staticky. I haven't been on very much lately because I literally woke up the other day with an ankle that was so swollen I could hardly walk. I could hardly get out of bed. And there had been no injury. I hadn't bumped into anything. I hadn't kicked anything. I didn't do anything differently. I just woke up and my ankle was swollen and achy, and I just felt sick all over. And I've been coming back slowly from that, thanks to things like knowing how to use tuning forks of various kinds, my biomagnets, which I don't have here to show you, the medical massage techniques that I know, because that's actually what I do for a living, and lymphatic drainage, which is part of medical massage. I've got some delicious pineapple here from the farmer's market. I'll probably eat the whole pineapple today. I've been talking to friends. Friends have been checking on me because I've been so quiet. Saving all the energy I had for the clients that I had to see, and sleeping and resting the rest of the time, resting my ankle. Just about everybody I know is having some kind of autoimmune, systemic, anything that was dormant in their body has flared up. Epstein-Barr, psoriatic arthritis, all that stuff is just flaring up for people. And, I did a read the other day when I read my last installment, and I asked if what was going on was a flushing. Sometimes, for instance, the way if there's a pond that's dirty, one of the ways that it's cleaned is biologicals are added to the water to change the pH so that all the toxins flow to the top. That's how oil spills are cleaned. All the toxins, all the oil, from a hydrogen perspective, are forced to the surface so that it could be collected and skimmed. That's the same premise with acupuncture, right? The idea of circling the dragon, where you will surround the acute spot with needles to literally circle that infection, that bacteria, whatever it is. We do the same thing with tuning forks. We use them and we'll circle the dragon with magnets, with acupressure, and all the things that we do. I feel that there's a flushing going on, and that what was coming out of my ankle were bacteria or viruses or toxins somewhere that were stored in the joints, and that does happen. Toxins, bacteria, viruses are stored in our joints. They're stored in our fascial tissue. They're stored in our tendons and ligaments. It's true. It's true. You don't read that on Google, but I'm sorry. The Asian cultures have been doing this for thousands of years, and before that, there were Moorish cultures, Egyptian cultures, whatever you want to call them, that did that and knew the same thing. Stuff hides in our body, and if all you do is treat where it hurts or where the pimple is or what have you, then all you're doing is treating a symptom, and that's like taking aspirin for a headache that you have because you have a brain tumor. It's not going to do you any good. It's just focused on your comfort and shutting you up. Anyway, so I picked up the Kipper deck today, and what's at the bottom of the deck? Big luck. That's good. We need some of that. Let's remember that. Nothing is a coincidence. Before I read from Dr. John, I just want to do a quick look at magnetosphere. Are all of these immune reactions in people's spiking because of alterations in frequency? Are all of these spikes in immune reactions occurring due to alterations in magnetics and frequency? Oh boy. Four of Cups. Four of Cups is us, the question. He's lackadaisical. He's surrounded by options. He just can't be bothered. He's emotionally stuck in his own water that's flowing between the four cups. And there's wisdom behind him going, hey dude, come on out. So that was us. That's all these changes in immune response. Maybe that even represents our collective immune systems responding to it all. The active, I asked if this is all going on because of changes in magnetics and frequency, and we get Temperance to represent that. She who pulls the water from the ether and turns it into a cup to drink. And there's her cloud-busting rainmaker behind her. Hieronymus, perhaps? Hieronymus? Activating the rain that she pours and creates the circle. If you look at that image, not the traditional temperance card, but if you look at that image, that pretty much looks like a yes. What I asked was, what's at the bottom of the deck before we go on? Ooh, Six of Cups. So the question that I asked was, are all these immune spikes, immune system spikes, right? He's on his butt, activated from changes to magnetics and frequency? Well, what is this? There's the cloud-busting rainmaker, and there she is taking the rain that has been manifested from the plasma into a cup to feed to all of us. That looks like a yes, my friends. That looks like a yes. And see, doesn't he look like, in this particular deck, the Dulac deck. No, this is the Pintar deck. I'm sorry. This is the Dulac deck. This is the Pintar deck. He's just so overwhelmed and barefoot. He's laid down his cane and he's just waiting it out. Is that how your immune system feels a little bit? Nine of Cups. The end of an emotional period. Perhaps a celebration? Nine of Cups, hard work. I love in this deck that he's wearing a leather jacket and he's sitting on a very simple stool that has old-fashioned straw seat that's falling all apart. I love the mixed representation of that. Hard work. Seated in humility. Bottom of the deck's a Six of Cups. Oh gosh, and what's under the Six of Cups is death. Okay. Let's find out about the relationship between these two. The relationship between our spiking, crazy autoimmune reactions, our activations of gunk that needs to leave our systems, and the biomagnetic stuff that's going on to make it is the devil. Yep. Yep. That's a yes. Yep. So you have to ask, is he there under the tree because he's lazy and bored? He has his shoes off and he's lazy. Is that why he's under the tree? Or is he under the tree because he felt like I did about 3 days ago, where it literally hurt to roll over in bed? My ankle and leg were so sore that it hurt to roll over in bed, and I had to crawl to go pee or crawl into the kitchen to get a drink of water. So is he on his butt because there's muck coming to the surface and he's grounding himself under the tree? He has laid down his cane, he has laid down his staff, his wand, because he's healing, and there is his loving partner waiting for him to heal? Or is he lazy? Normally I look at this card as kind of one of boredom and lack of motivation, but I don't see it that way this time. I see it under the circumstances and knowing how I feel and how so many other people I know are feeling this way, but they have to keep going because of work. I see it as the condition, this bombardment of our immune systems by all of these manufactured, he's the cloud busting rainmaker there, this concoction that is being prepared for us. And they are full of temperance, aren't they? They're full of patience, those that do those things. What's the next immediate outcome? Interesting. The immediate outcome is the Hanged Man. Shit's gonna flip. Let's see how quickly. Oh. It's going to flip fast. Two of Wands, and it portends of success and movement when it does. Clarify that a little bit more, please. Yep. This is where we are now. And our, the devil also represents the fascination with comfort, which is always played upon us. Comfort and fear. This whole 2 years has been about fear. Running off and hoarding toilet paper or steaks at Costco or anything like that is the devil. It's about living in fear, and that is manipulating both of these very powerful and patient crafters of this alteration concoction of magnetics and frequency that we are being poured a drink of. But it's about to flip, and it will flip 100%, and it's going to flip fast, and that's going to catapult people. You know, she's in a big train station, she's well dressed, she's got a lovely purple coat, a nice hat, she's got her bag, she's ready to go. Big change is coming. And transcendence. Nice. And then what was at the bottom of the deck was the Six of Cups. Careful who you follow. Careful what you leave behind emotionally. This little child is asked to follow this kind of mysterious, dark creature through the woods, but the kid's looking back and going, but really? This is all coming to an end quickly. This is all coming to an end quickly. And there will be a lovely transcendence and rebirth. And then the High Priestess was behind death. So let's just see what's in the middle of the deck, and then let's move on to Dr. John. So, yeah. We've got the Queen of Wands. She's got it together. She's fiery. She's confident. She moves fast and swift. She's elegant. But she has enough discernment to go, what are you doing? In opposition to the Seven of Swords. Here they come. Here they come. Here they come with their concoctions of rain-made snake oil, needle play, and fear-mongering. Sometimes all you can do is use your strategy to stand above them and let them pass and get out of the way. Okay. Sorry, I'm so... Yeah. There's still stuff going on with my ankle. I am mobile. I am working, but there's still stuff going on. So let me put these back. Grab another cup of coffee that I put too much sugar in. And let's proceed with the tuning fork experience. You know a good way to start all this stuff? Stop buying fresh food at the grocery store. Go to the farmer's market. If you have someone in your neighborhood that has chickens, buy your eggs from them. They're probably healthier. The chickens likely live a better life. If you have cattle ranchers, see if you can buy fresh meat from them, and chicken and pork. Here where I live, I don't really eat that stuff. I eat fish. But in 15 minutes of here, we have lines of ranchers where you can buy fresh beef. Start doing that. Start buying what you can locally. Start now. Find out where those places are now, because this stuff's going to get real and it's going to happen quickly. And with the whole supply chain issue, gas rising, diesel rising, it might not even be an option of you just driving all over town to hoard. The stuff might not be on the shelves because the prices are going up because of all these issues. So get local. I buy very little at the grocery store. Very little. Okay. Tuning fork experience and echoic reflections. And if you've been listening, then you know what anechoic means. But Dr. John, who is a psychiatrist, he was a psychiatrist at Bellevue, started his tuning fork journey by bringing his tuning forks into an anechoic chamber. An anechoic chamber, and there are different sizes, is a completely soundproof room where basically he would hear his own heartbeat, his own nervous system, his digestive system. They're used for things like testing car engines and that type of thing. So at the beginning of every section, he's got he starts every section with these anechoic reflections, because that was the beginning of his tuning fork journey. I named the original set of Pythagorean tuned tuning forks I used in the anechoic chamber the solar harmonic spectrum. I like the term solar because the tuning forks had a bright sound and rang the full spectrum of overtones. The chamber, due to sensory isolation, could be very disorienting. In order to keep my bearings and know exactly what I was doing, I developed a journal. Every time I went to the chamber, I systematically recorded my experience at each interval. I spent 1 week working with each interval. For example, I would listen to the interval of a fifth for 1 week. Then the next week, I would listen to the interval of a fourth, and so on. And just for reference, the fifth he's speaking of is the perfect fifth, which is 384 hertz G with 256 hertz C, which are 1 to 1 and 2 to 3 in the harmonic spectrum. And that's what they sound like. And I tell everyone, if you want to start your tuning fork journey, start here. Get the C and the G, get the perfect fifth. Start from here. Don't go out and buy a whole set of everything. It's going to be too much. It's like being a brand new driver at 16 and buying a Corvette. It's too much. Start here. At one point, I recorded each interval and played them back on speakers on each side of my bed. I would play the interval at a very low volume in order not to disturb my sleep. I kept a dream journal, and the next morning I would record my dreams after being in the interval all night. I got so into being in the different intervals that I brought a special headphone called a bone phone. The bone phone goes around your neck and conducts sound through bone conduction into the ears. This was before iPods and MP3s. I used a Sony Walkman with a cassette to play back the interval on auto reverse. That tells you how long ago he did this, a Sony Walkman. I had a Sony Walkman because I'm old. I would live as much as possible both in and out of the anechoic chamber inside each interval. I called it interval immersion. The more I knew how the sound affected my mind and body, the better I would be able to know how to use it with a patient. The same formula holds true today. The more you experience and know about an interval, the better you will be to use it with yourself and others. The tuning forks are learning tools that teach you the knowledge of your own nervous system and the effects of different tunings. Once you understand this, the tuning forks become just another way to connect you to the universal field. With practice, you can think the sound of tuning forks, and your nervous system and body will come into resonance. Yes, yes, yes. Let me read that again. Once you understand this, the tuning forks just become another way to connect you to the universal field. They're how I do remote sessions. With practice, you can think the sound of the tuning forks, and your nervous system and body will come into resonance. That is the whole point of all energy work. That is the whole point. That is the whole point of crystal work, color therapy, sound therapy of any kind. I also use Himalayan singing bowls, the metal ones. Things like this work, and crystals work, because they resonate with frequencies that already exist somewhere in your cellular makeup. Your organ systems, your cellular systems, your fascial systems, your fluid systems all have frequencies and ranges that are healthy and unhealthy. And things like this work, here's an orgone thing with obsidian and shungite and copper rods. I call this my battery. Well, I can feel this thing charging in my hand. Why? Because the frequencies of the copper and the frequencies of the shungite and the obsidian in here resonate with frequencies in my cellular system, and they resonate together. That's why they work. You're not supposed to fill your house with crystals and be dependent on crystals and keep robbing the earth of crystals. You're cutting the teeth out of the earth when you do that. But the crystals are here to teach us things. They're to teach us about the resonances, just like the tuning forks teach us about, the tuning forks teach us about the resonant frequencies that exist in our bodies. If you have an auto tuning fork that you place on your body, you're introducing that frequency directly in. The key is not to become dependent on the tools, but to let the tools, including crystals, including pendulums, including divination cards, the point is to move beyond the tools and use your own inherent frequency system, which through the tools, hopefully, you have balanced and optimized to resonate more successfully, more integratively in the entire biomagnetic world around you. That is the point. I have an absolute military arsenal of tuning forks, but I'll tell you what, I've given a lot away because I don't need them anymore. Because I have moved past the need for that range of forks or that set. I have figured it out. I don't need that set or that particular frequency. So it's not about collecting stuff, and that includes crystals. Yes, you can grid, and I know how to grid. You lay certain crystals in certain places and you do certain work, but you're not supposed to spend the rest of your life gridding. You're supposed to learn from the crystals how to do that from here and not be dependent on the crystals. Leave the crystals in the ground. Actually, I've given all my crystals except quartz back to the earth because I was told to by the elements that I resonate with, the elements that teach me things about the water and the indigenous people that were here before. Because for me to keep them anymore, I'm just keeping the training wheels on the bike, and we're supposed to evolve. So you like all these pretty crystals that you have in your house, but are you using them? Or are you just dependent upon the way they emotionally make you feel instead of dealing with the fact that you seem to need these things to feel that way? Think about it. All right. So I'm going to read about the solar harmonic spectrum, and I just want to say, in my journey in tuning forks, I have, it's like when I started learning about singing bowls, I bought different kinds of singing bowls from different places to learn about the quality of those things. You know, like some people, if you're a chef, you're going to buy different knives or different kinds of copper bowls, or, you know, whatever. You try different things. If you like to read cards, you're going to buy a lot of different kinds of cards, and you're going to find what cards speak to you, what imagery works, and what doesn't. So I have bought a great deal of tuning forks. As I said, a lot of them I've given away to friends who were starting the journey. And sometimes I bought things that I knew were cheap. They were very inexpensive. And I know enough about how tuning forks are made as to why they were so inexpensive. But I wanted to see. You know, sometimes you want to see the difference between a knife that you buy, you know, a quality knife that you buy at a department store, or a kitchen store, Williams Sonoma or something like that, and a knife you buy at the dollar store. You know, sometimes you buy that dollar store knife because you want to see, well, what's the difference? Is there a difference? So, currently, all of the tuning forks that I have were made by this man. Dr Beaulieu's company supplies the tuning forks for Biofield Tuning, which is Elaine McCusack, and Soma Energetics, which is Dr. David Hulse. And I have trained with all of those people and Dr. Beaulieu. His company makes all the forks that they have. So with the exception of the solar harmonic spectrum, all the forks I have are from Dr. Beaulieu. But I was curious, and I purchased an inexpensive solar harmonic spectrum on purpose for the reasons that I just said. Sometimes you buy that dollar store knife, maybe because you're just taking a camping trip, right? And you want a little $4 knife. You don't want to take your good knife from home. But also sometimes because you're curious. Well, I was curious how these tuning forks could be less than half the price of the good forks, of the quality forks. And what I'm going to say is the main ingredient is aluminum. The main difference is aluminum. So this is a solar harmonic spectrum, not from Dr. Beaulieu. I'm not going to tell you where I got them, but I will tell you is that they're surgical steel as opposed to aluminum. And you can see right off the bat, they're smaller. These are just surgical steel, and these are aluminum alloy. These resonate longer. They're also softer, you know. This one, I sat on once. It fell out of my bag in my car, and I sat on it, and you can see how it's jacked up there. Well, that wouldn't happen to surgical steel fork. But that softness is what gives it that extensive resonance. So anyway, just explaining that, because as I pull out the solar harmonics, I don't have his, I have these. They're not as resonant, they don't ring as long, their power is not as powerful as the aluminum alloy. But anyway, and the perfect fifth that I show you every time I read is part of his harmonic spectrum, the Pythagorean set. These are part of the harmonic spectrum. They would just all look like this instead of this. So anyway, okay, just explaining that. Solar harmonic spectrum, the art of Pythagorean tuning. Pythagoras was a Greek philosopher and mathematician who lived about 580 BC. He was a contemporary of both Buddha and Confucius and is said to have traveled to Egypt, Mesopotamia, and India in search of knowledge. Pythagoras believed in a singing universe, which he poetically termed the music of the spheres. He taught that musical instruments, especially the lyre, when tuned to Pythagorean intervals, were capable of tuning the soul to the singing rhythms of the universe. The lyre was the main instrument in the Pythagoreans used to tune the soul. There are many stories about Pythagoreans and their use of the lyre. One goes like this. A demented youth forced his way into the dwelling of a prominent judge who had recently sentenced the boy's father to death for a criminal offense. The frenzied lad, bearing a naked sword, approached the jurist who was dining with friends and threatened his life. Among the guests was a Pythagorean. Reaching over quietly, he struck an interval upon a lyre which had been laid out by a musician who had been entertaining the gathering. At the sound of the interval, the crazed young man stopped in his tracks and could not move. That's still point. He was led away as though in a trance. There's a picture of a woman playing a lyre. You know, I used to have a lyre, and I used to do sound baths and sound immersions, and apparently I left my lyre at one of those sound baths, so I don't have one anymore, but that's okay. Today, tuning forks are like the modern lyre, which is always in tune. Instead of plucking strings to sound Pythagorean intervals, the modern practitioner can tap tuning forks and achieve the same effect without traditional music training. Tuning forks can go beyond the traditional Greek lyre with the ability to create individual sonic spaces and precise overtones. A Pythagorean interval can be visualized as a sonic space defined by two tuning forks. Each Pythagorean interval has unique qualities that affect healing and consciousness. When the listener enters the sonic space created by a Pythagorean interval, he experiences a pulse that entrains the whole body and simultaneously tunes the nervous system. Within seconds, the listener experiences a shift in consciousness, complete with a new mental, emotional, and physical pattern. And I have experienced this time and time again. I've experienced this with sound baths too, where everyone's laying on a yoga mat or outside in the grass, and I just start playing a wide variety of bowls and percussion instruments and whatnot, and you go into a zone in the same way that you have that cadre of songs that are your songs, and they literally change your mood. Sometimes listening to your favorite CD can transform you in every way, be absolutely refreshing. And yet if you listen to music that you hate, that you find your nervous system doesn't like it, and it's discordant and disturbing, it wears you out. When a Pythagorean interval is sounded, it can be visualized as a gateway of sound inside of which the two tones of the tuning forks merge into a spiral to create a third sound. So now we're talking about the concept of binaurals. So this is 256C. Again, this is the perfect fifth, part of the Pythagorean set. This is 384G. If I strike each fork, and I were to put each fork on opposite sides of my head, so I've got the C going in one ear and the G going in the other ear, my brain recording those two separate sounds creates a third tone out of the space between them. And the space between them is 384 minus 256. That becomes its own note. That's the third note. That's also the binaural. So let me erase that again. Where are we? When a Pythagorean interval is sounded, it can be visualized as a gateway of sound, inside of which the two tones of the tuning forks merge into a spiral to create a third sound. The third sound is called a difference tone in musical language because it's simply the difference in frequency between the two. The Pythagoreans, based on their experience, called the difference tone the voice of God. It is the voice of God that pulses through the whole body, tunes the nervous system, and energizes the 5 elements. Creating intervals with tuning forks is easy. Musicians spend a lot of time learning scales and combinations of sound to create music. Interval tuning is much simpler because it focuses on healing rather than on musical performance. All that is required is the ability to lay out the tuning forks in order and count from 1 through 8. This is how it works. Move my pineapple and tarot cards and things out of the way. So we're going to get these out. And I don't know if you can see, but I just put a piece of tape with a marker on there with each note because it's hard. It's hard to see. The numbers are so small. Lay out the solar harmonic spectrum in order below. When using the interval, always use C 256 as number 1. .256 as 1. It's going to be the longest one. The length of the tuning fork is a product of the hertz, the frequency. So 256 is 1. D is 2. E is 3. F is 4. G is 5. A is 6. B is 7. And the other C, 512, is 8. Now select the interval you want to work with. In order to learn how to work with intervals, begin by selecting the interval of a fifth. That's what I've been showing you all along. C 256 and G. In order to sound an interval, you will find these 3 components: technique, visualization, and reception. Technique is the method of producing sound. Visualization is what you intend to produce, is what you intend when you produce the sound. Visualization is what you intend when you produce the sound. Reception is the act of transferring the sound to yourself or to someone else for healing. So this goes on for several pages. I'm just going to read the first one, and then we'll go into all the rest, because you see it goes on and on and on. So we'll go on with that later. But I'm just going to do the first one. So I have a hockey puck. Omnivos is one of the companies that Dr. Beaulieu's company produces tuning forks for. So all the good companies, you won't find tuning forks produced by Dr. Beaulieu. These were not produced by Dr. Beaulieu because they're cheap. They're not as effective. Yeah, but you see, this is from Omnivos, which is one of the companies that he produces tuning forks for, and one of his students. This is 128C. But anyway, I have hockey pucks. That whenever you get a set of anything, you get a hockey puck. He's talking about you can hit them on your knees. You can do that, and when I'm working on people, I often hit my knee, or I hit this right here on your hand, which is called your thenar eminence. There's like a pad right there on a bone. I hit my thenar eminence, or I hit my hips, or I hit my knee. But if I can, I hit a hockey puck. But anyway, so technique 1, knee tap. And you see there's Dr. Beaulieu, and he's tapping his knee. Hold the tuning fork by the stems. You want to hold the stem because you don't want to interfere with this. This is where all the sound is being generated, and the path of resonance. So if you do this, you're cutting off, you're cutting off this path of resonance. You're going to shorten the sound. It's going to sound the same, but it's going to be a lot shorter and not as powerful because you have interfered. Did you hear how that made a difference? Do you hear the difference? So hold down here as best you can. In fact, some of the tuning forks I have from Soma Energetics, the handles are long, and I have a tuning fork from Biofuel Tuning. The handle's about 4 or 5 inches long. But what he's saying is just hit the tuning fork on your knee. That's good if you're sitting, but if you're standing, I like hitting right there on my thenar eminence. Make sure you hold it here. And you see he's saying don't hold it on the yoke, hold it on the stem. Gently tap the flat side of the tuning fork on your kneecap. Do not hit or slap your tuning fork with the kneecap. So right here, don't hit this. Don't hit that, it won't work. You have to hit one tine or the other on the outside to get your resonance going. All it takes is a gentle yet firm tap to bring your tuning forks to sound. It's as though you gently drop the flat side of the tuning fork on your kneecap. Or if you want to tap the forks on your knees, you can tap them on the floor, the massage table, or even the palm of your hand. That's what I do. Oop. You can do a coffee cup, but that's not very good. Some practitioners use a hockey puck strapped to their knee, which is awkward but effective. Sometimes I've seen people stick the tuning fork, like if they have on pants with a pocket, they'll put the tuning fork in their pocket, and then so, they're hitting right there. Soma Energetics, the main company that I buy from now and have done all their training programs, actually make an apron that's kind of like this. It's got multiple pockets for tuning forks, and it has one wide pocket to put the tuning fork in. So you've got like a server's apron, and you can put all these tuning forks in it. It is best to tap the C56 first on the knee and the G tuning fork on the other knee. Once you've mastered that method, you can tap the tuning forks at the same time. So he's just illustrating that right there. And then you bring your tuning forks to either side of your head so you can get the two frequencies go into your head. That's Dr. Beaulieu. And you can get that interval between them, that binaural. When the sound stops, lower your tuning forks and switch from hand to hand. For example, if you listen to the C in your right ear first, then switch to your left ear for the second tap. Now tap your tuning forks again. When the sound fades, wait at least 15 seconds and allow your sieve to be in the after effects of the tone. And that's really important. If you're working on yourself, you don't want to overwhelm your nervous system. You'll always need to create that still point, that quiet place between where the frequency that's decreasing, it's like waves. The frequency that's decreasing can come to its final process, and then the next tap, and you move up. You don't want to just go bang, 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 right? You don't want to do that. Which is how you can tell if you go to sound baths, singing bowl sound baths, you can tell people who have been trained versus people who just bought a whole bunch of singing bowls on Amazon. Because the people that have been trained know how still point and the space between the sounds work. The people who have no training just keep banging, and they think louder is better instead of thinking like waves. So that's where I'm going to stop today, because this just goes on and 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 on. So we're going to stop here today. So I don't recommend that you buy these steel ones. I will be getting a set of Dr. Beaulieu's solar harmonics. If nothing else, I use these as an example of what not to buy. I have taught classes to people of how to use tuning forks and singing bowls, and I hang on to these to show people, hit this, What's the difference? Can you tell the difference? And then they listen to the differences in the quality of sound. So this is like that dollar store knife. Like if you're going on a camping trip, that's fine. If I were to take these with me and leave them somewhere, I wouldn't be too heartbroken. But if I had a full solar harmonic spectrum set and I lost them, or I lost one, you can't buy one, you know, you have to buy the whole set, I'd be pretty upset. So these are kind of a demonstrative of what not to buy. Okay. Anyhow, so let's, what else have I got here? I've got my, these are brainwave forks from Soma Energetics, which Dr. Beaulieu makes. And you see how the handles are longer, so it gives you more room to hold them. See, the handles are longer. So, yeah, so gamma, theta, beta, alpha, and delta. Different brainwaves. So let's give all of you guys a little theta to help you integrate all that we talked about today. So I've got theta, which is that twilight sleep, when you're falling to sleep, when you're waking up, that place where your creative mind is the most suggestive. And you know, people who listen to tapes all night when they sleep or whatever, this is why, because you are so receptive in theta. And this is fundamental, meaning that it has the ability to mimic the frequency. So I've got theta here, and if I strike them together, this tuning fork will resonate to create theta on the other ear. Or if I do it with gamma, same thing, or beta. It just it matches the tone. So, excuse me. So take a deep breath. And here's a little theta wash. See you tomorrow, guys.